Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Economic Preppers. I'm here, as always, with Dylan and Patrick. Let's start with Patrick. Patrick, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling really great. I think I've had a wonderful day. Had a great interview today with another CEO of a great silver company. So I'm having a great day.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that silver show in a little bit. Dylan, how are things in Colorado this moment right now?
Fantastic. A little worrisome with some of the news articles that we're about to talk about. I don't want to talk about them now. But first thing I'll tell you is like, comment, share, and subscribe if you like these. If you have questions, if there's stuff you want us to cover, definitely let us know in the comments below. We love seeing those.
Yeah, please hit that like, share, subscribe, and notification bell. Get this. If you like this content, please share it to somebody who needs to hear it. And always the comments help, the likes, the share, all that stuff helps grow the channel. We do this to get the message out. We're not here for none of this is monetized. There's no advertisers or anything just yet, but we'll accept them if they want to and they vibe with our brand. But we're here to get the message out. We want to talk about all these different stories, and boy, do we have a lot of stories to talk to. So I'm going to jump right in. And the first story I'm going to talk about is, I don't know if guys heard, but there seems to be some issues in the banking sector. You guys heard anything about that?
No, nothing. I haven't heard of any bank problems in the past week.
Well, the first one here is Silicon Valley Bank. That was not the first one to go. I think that was not Signature. It was the first
Silvergate.
one was, yeah, thank you, Silvergate. So Silvergate, kind of a smaller boy that we didn't, smaller bank. We didn't talk too much about that one. Then Silicon Valley became the media's talking point, and then Signature Bank also closed on a Sunday. So that was kind of interesting. And we will talk about like why did regulators close Signature Bank, but I think most everybody's focusing on Silicon Valley Bank. There are lots of other banks we can talk to as well. We can talk about Credit Suisse. We could talk about Silicon Valley. We could talk about a number of other banks. We heard about First Republic just a couple hours ago as we're recording live on a Thursday afternoon here on the West Coast. Dylan, why don't you lead us off and talk about some banking issues? What are you seeing? Any of this surprising you?
Oh man, yes and no. Like being in the Bitcoin space, we're in the Bitcoin hat. This is why Bitcoin was created, or a big catalyst for it. It was created in the wake of the 2008 financial crisis with big collapses there. And the whole idea is just knowing that these institutions, while they seem safe, and while you might think they are safe, they can oftentimes get very, very reckless with your money over time, and you don't realize how much risk you're taking on. And we talk about this all the time, and you don't want to see things like this happen. Like, we don't want to see big collapses and things just overnight, money just not being there and holes in balance sheets. But it keeps happening over and over and over again. This was the second and third largest bank collapses ever just happened this past week. So that's pretty dramatic. So while I don't want to see those things happen, I expect them to happen, especially as things are getting a little more crazy and volatile in our economy due to all the tightening of massive money printing, all the things they've been harping on for years. So it's wild to see this. And of course, when we talked about these things that happened with crypto earlier, previously, there's always the talk of contagion. So one big institution fails, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I expect more things to kind of get shaken up here in the next few weeks and months, and potentially even the next couple of years as well.
Yeah, we're going to talk about timelines. I did a video on my Litecoin Leader channel. I think it might come out today, might be yesterday, I'm not sure, but it's hard to time those right. I think it was yesterday, but we talked about timeline, and I'll share some of that here today. But before we get to all that stuff, Patrick, so much to talk about with the banking sector, but what's your take on the big picture here?
Man, I feel angry for the American people because it doesn't really matter what they do and what choices they make. The money always comes back to the big banks. I mean, think about what happened with First Republic. The money was withdrawn by consumers, by their clients, and they put them in different banks. And then these banks turn around and say, we're going to give money back to First Republic. So, they took your money, the big banks took it, and then they gave it back to the bank that just failed. And it didn't even fail. I mean, it got bailed out. And how are we so dumb that we really believe it's not going to come back and bite us, the taxpayers, in the butt? This is, again, the poor bailing out the rich. I'm not even going to get down into the companies involved in all this, but the reality is it's just a big joke, and it's really sad to be right. I mean, I knew this was going to happen. I knew that the writing was on the wall. We've been calling it for a while, but while I'm a little vindicated and it feels good to feel like I kind of see what's happening, there's still a lot of there's a lot of fuzzy lines here. I'm not sure how this is going to shake out, but even with the way they agreed to loan it for a year, even based on the current values, it's like they're just going to reprint the money again. And then what happens in a year when these loans are due? I just don't understand. This reminds me back in the day when we were talking a few episodes ago about the debt ceiling and how they didn't want to even pretend that there was one. And no one's talking about this anymore. So it's like, hey, we're not going to pretend that we have a debt ceiling, and we're going to pretend like no bank crashed because we said so. But it's not going to hurt anybody. I mean, let's wake up, guys. Like, this is really happening.
Yeah, they keep trying to fill the news cycle with other stories than this, and some things are just not clicking. And this is the dominant story by far, and people are going to learn. Unfortunately, it's a shame that we're right. I mean, but yeah, you're going to hear that. You're going to hear a lot of "we were right" in this episode, but we say it with a sour taste in our mouth because we know people are hurting because of this. But this is an example of the financial system that they built. And what happened 3 years ago was that there was so much money injected into this financial system because they shut things down in 2020. Banks they had a ton of deposits, but their job is to put it somewhere for growth, and they couldn't find anywhere. So they were putting it in 1%, 2% treasuries. And now those are losing value because treasuries are 4 and 5%. So you have to lower those values, and now banks are starting to struggle because they're overexposed to one sector like crypto, which we will definitely be talking about, or they have too many deposits, or they have not enough reserves. All these different things. It's just these smaller banks are easy to topple over, and then I think the FDIC is stepping up, and even though they're underfunded, which will come up as well, and we can talk about credit unions as too, but both of them are underfunded by, I think they're funded about between 1 and 1.5% of all the assets that should be insured. So if more than 2% of the banks implode, or 2% of the deposits implode, we're going to see major issues, and we're just going to have to print money.
Not even 2% of deposits implode. It's like if every person in the United States went out and tried to withdraw 3% of their bank account, they wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, I think it was Lynn Alden, and she has a couple good charts. You can follow her on Twitter. It's Lynn Alden Contact, but I think she posted some numbers, and I haven't double checked them, but she's pretty good with her stuff. But it's basically saying there's like $17.3 trillion of represented deposits, and there's only 100 billion of that. I think something like that of actual physical cash that is available. So only 100 billion out of 17.3 trillion can actually get out of the bank. Everything else is represented digitally in some form or another, or is in another investment or in another asset, and you can't get access to it. And so that's a real problem when people start losing faith in the bank. They understand why the media and the powers that be don't want people to lose faith in the banks, and they want to make it seem like we didn't just experience the second largest bank collapse in history. Like, no big deal, nothing to worry about, people.
Yeah, the numbers have gotten larger since the last collapse. So I think it was Washington Mutual was the number one, but that was back in 2008, in the global financial crisis, the GFC. But I mean, people are going to learn like the difference between a bailout and a bail-in. There's not that much as far as it's just verbiage. They're still going to be printing dollars or adding more dollars to the system. And that's just going to make inflation even that much more worse, because people will be made whole, and we can speculate how they can be made whole. And why don't we get into it now? Because we heard an announcement yesterday that the Fed now was being accelerated, and the Fed now being accelerated I could see a real scenario where if banks start to crumble across the U.S. and people want to be made whole, they may have to take something that is not the Federal Reserve notes, but it may be a CBDC instead, to say, well, we owe you $100, but here's $10 and $90 in CBDC, maybe even $100 in CBDCs, just to make them whole. And all of a sudden now the populace have CBDCs in circulation. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I mean, that'd be a very clever way to do it. And like they say, never let a good crisis go to waste. So especially if there's an issue with the banking system, and people can be able to get access to their money. And if they can come out with an alternative money that is accepted, that is approved, that is safe and secure, that they can give to people, of course people are going to be on board, because people aren't going to be able to feed their families. They're not going to be able to buy groceries. So if this new money is able to buy groceries, people aren't going to care, right? And that's the danger of this, is like, and that's like if you're looking to implement something like a CBDC, which gives you programmable money and control and surveillance over everyone, it's not going to happen all at once, but it's going to happen little by little, and you're going to use or create market forces to drive adoption. I mean, if you have all your funds in a bank and you can't get those, and then someone comes to you and gives you something that you can buy food for your family, you're going to take it, right? Like, it's an easy choice, and unfortunately, like, that choice can lead to some dark days in the future.
Yeah, Patrick, I just shared the article from the other night, and it says in the fine print here, they will be officially certifying banks to use the FedNow service in testing as soon as April 1st. So they're really accelerating this 2 weeks from now. 2 weeks from now, banks, like 2 weeks from tomorrow, or like St. Patrick's Day, the last Friday of it's the first Friday of April. But basically, we're 2 weeks away as we launch this show on Friday, that from having FedNow and this, whatever they're going to call it, whatever the CBDC, could be FedCoin. I don't know what the official name for it yet, but it's going to be out there in April. I mean, that's like we were calling sometime between April and July. And now with the crisis, as Dylan pointed out, never let a crisis go to waste.
Didn't the article say in there they were going to call it like FedNow Cash?
Oh, great. That's even terrible.
Or like
name.
Fed Cash. In the article down there, they say what they're calling it. It's saying that they're going to allow you to transact in FedNow Cash or something like that. It's absolutely ridiculous.
I'll dig through and find it.
I'm pretty, yeah. I mean, it was just absolutely insane the way that they were talking about it. They named it. They're getting the banks ready to go in April and ready to be used in July. Like, it's exactly the time frame we've been saying. What is going to happen in between now and July to make this use case a necessity, right? Because necessity is like the mother of innovation or something like that. So they're looking for the crisis to solve. They've already solved the problem. The question we've always had in the last 6-7 months, a year, 2 years that we've been talking is, what's going to happen, right? We've been on Ninja's show talking about Volante Labs partnering with XRP, understanding that they're testing this, and they have been for a while. So this doesn't surprise me at all. I just think it's hilarious how they're going to try to let you think it's called like FedNow notes or whatever they call it. It's like, come on.
The name I found is that it's called the FedNow service, and access will be provided through the Federal Reserve's FedLine network. I don't think they have a name, but I don't think they have the name for the currency yet. I don't see it just yet.
And it's probably just going to be called the US dollar, right? If they can avoid changing it, it'd be kind of silly if you're going to try and replace something that has one of the most well-known brands in the world, to try and change brands. That's a big task. That's a big task, and a big thing to try and push.
Right.
Everyone knows the dollar.
But the US dollar is known as the Federal Reserve.
They called it Fed Cash.
Yeah.
All right.
It's right here, right at the top. It's Access Fed Cash, check services, Fed Cash services, Fed ACH services.
Okay.
They have it like a registered trademark too.
Okay.
So you can have an account with the Fed now, and then you get all your paychecks and everything sent, converted into Fed Cash, and be held by the Fed. Is that
cash? That sounds like garbage.
Well, they're going to try and extinguish cash as fast as they can, and the statistics say that not many people use cash, but they're going to learn about the privacy aspect of cash. That is, everyone concerned. But this contagion, like we've talked a little bit about the contagion. We had the first three banks, and we're going to get back to Signature because that's big towards the crypto. But the first couple of banks seemed to be all either venture capitalists or crypto or both. But then it started to spread into Europe too, and we had Credit Suisse was having a problem, and Credit Suisse was getting a whole bunch of injections. Let me share that as well. So you have Credit Suisse getting. Well, thank you for advertisement. So Credit Suisse is getting 54 billion injection from the Swiss National Network. They're getting zero hedges like all over this. We have First Republic getting 30 billion unsecured deposit injection just announced today from all these major banks, as you see down below: Bank of America, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley. I mean, this is the Big Short all over again. This is like 15 years, almost, I think it's to the month of the Big Short, of where the global financial crisis in 2008 kind of imploded. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. There are different aspects to it because of what you guys said with the Fed Now coin. I'm not going to get the name right in this episode. It's not going to happen. But with Fed Now coming out in the next few months, banks going under, the FDIC, and for those who don't know, the credit unions do have an equivalent. I think it's the NCUA, but they're both reserved at about 1.5% of the assets they should have. So the reserves, like imagine having for every 100 million of assets that are out there, they have $1.5 million of insurance available for the 100 million. So
yeah,
think of the shortfall. Like you're not going to be able to get for $98 out of your $100 that you have on the books at your bank if they all go under. So that's where the CBDC will come into the rescue. And I think that's really the diabolically correct way that they're going to do this. They have some great master plans of getting these CBDCs in people's hands and into circulation, increasing the velocity in the present economy, which is really lagging because people aren't spending because they don't have anything to spend. But all the Federal Reserve notes and the CBDCs, the buying power will go down compared to what they were buying just today, because it's probably going to be almost twice as much as we have now. That was a lot. That was a lot.
I want to throw in one thing about CBDCs that we haven't talked about too much. And I had been thinking about this, and then I heard George Gammon talk about it. I'm like, he's talked about how they could have already have a CBDC implemented and we wouldn't really know. But then the big play is you need to get the retailers on board, because the retailers control all the data to all the products and services, and you need to be able to link the retail data to your Fed identity with someone's Fed identity, so that you can monitor and control at the micro transaction level, the product level, what people can buy and what they can't buy. And so if they're launching a Fed coin or a Fed Now service or payment system, you could probably look to see if there's any sort of incentives for using that type of payment system or particular apps at certain retailers, at certain things like Chipotle or McDonald's or Walmart, places like that. If that starts happening, then that's a really big indication that CBDC is coming through, and that they'll have the data on all your transactions. Right? And they're going to make it sound great. They're going to make it sound, hey, you can look at everything you buy. You can have these scores. You can monitor it. You can track it. And the nerds that love to track everything are going to be so excited. But all the people that realize what's going on are going to be just in terror.
Yeah, they're going to put lipstick on this pig as best as they can and make it as presentable, to use the media as much as they can. But I just heard stats last night. I think they said that our media is less than 50% respected as far as telling the truth. So we'll see how it plays out. It could very well all crumble in the next 6 months because, like some people, like many people are aware of the CBDC coming, and they're not going to trust it and think, like, where is this digital ID going to come from? I think that's the elephant in the room of what you just said. If you need a digital ID to do these transactions, where is it going to come from? What platform? How are they going to implement that? Patrick, what are your thoughts on this before we even go further into this?
Their program is to, I'm going to quote from them, to promote effectively the goals of maximum employment, stable prices, and moderate long-term interest rates. They have, this is just a cluster, guys. Like, it's coming. It's here.
Aren't they like trying to increase unemployment by basically engaging in demand destruction right now?
Dude, they don't know what they're doing.
Aren't they constantly tinkering with
foot on the brake?
Yeah, so, and they're constantly tinkering with like money going in and out of the system, the cost of money, cost to borrow money. Like that's a big reason why all these banks and stuff are failing or having issues, because the rules keep changing to the game, and you set up an agreement in one inning or one quarter or one stage of the game, and you have no idea what's going to be in the next one. And then there's all the incentives in the world to just take on as much risk as you can possibly get away with, because you know that if something goes awry, that the person changing the rules is like, I understand, I did change those rules, they did kind of mess you up, so here's some money so you can keep playing because that's better for everyone, right? Like, well,
going back to that, going back to the Big Short. 15 years ago, 2008. Nobody was shorting the housing market. They were laughing at the concept because the housing market wasn't going down. It kept going up, up, up. Why? Who would ever see the amount of mortgage failures that we saw in that global financial crisis? But Michael Burry did. So now we've got a different financial system, different financial circumstances, where they've been raising rates at a record pace, never been this high, never been this rapid of increases. They don't know what they're going to do next week. I've heard no increase. I heard some increase. Really doesn't matter. A quarter point, half a point, doesn't matter. They have lost control. So now it's like they are just moving to try and control whatever they can, whatever's left, because they know the whole thing is crumbling. And what I want to point out now is that something I was, as I was digging in, because the first three banks, they were all tied to crypto. If you dug into it, Silvergate, which I almost get that name wrong again, but Silvergate had a bunch of crypto projects in there, and they were over leveraged. And then you had Silicon Valley Bank, which we don't know all the banks that were involved there, or all the companies that were involved there. We heard a lot about climate change companies. I think 1,500 climate change companies were involved in that bank. But then we had Signature Bank on a Sunday that was captured by the Federal Reserve, but they weren't insolvent. So I'm going to share a couple of things right now, and this may go towards a little conspiracy theory, maybe. We'll talk about that. But let me go through just a couple of things. I think it was they called it Operation Choke Point, and it was by Nick Carter. And he goes into this, and I think this is not quite a Substack, but he's a good follow on Twitter. I've got him right here. He, at Nick Carter, and he goes onto Signature a lot. He's an investment guy, but when he was talking about the banks looking at bailing out Signature, only bidders with an existing bank charter were allowed. And the other part that was really telling was any buyer of Signature must agree to give up all the crypto business at the bank. So that means that they're basically going to be divesting of whatever they have that's exposed to crypto. Now, it's also worth noting that Signature, they were taking over on a Sunday. Yes, exposure to crypto a lot, but they're in New York, which is the worst state for crypto, one of the most heavily legislated, heavily anti-crypto places in the country. And they're also work tightly with the Gemini and Winklevoss twins. So there's yet another exchange that's being attacked. And if you go back through, I'm gonna bring it up again and I'll share this link because I think it was so well done. The Pirate Wires, the Operation Choke Point. It was like he just outlined, and he wrote this in February. Like he didn't even go into the March stuff, but just since December through February, all the anti crypto bank processes that were happening. Everything that were coming down from every angle in the government, they're basically trying to choke out the ability to translate from fiat currency to crypto and back. And that's one of the ways that they're trying to control access to the crypto market. Patrick, I know you're chomping at the bit to comment on this. What do you got for me?
Man, I'm just thinking about what they're not telling us, right? I'm always interested about what they're not telling us. And to me, I believe that is happening. We are going more towards some kind of CBDC. We will see a little bit of consolidation in the markets like we've been expecting. Several projects may not make it. But I'm not even concerned about that as much as I am what's happening globally. Because one of the things that we haven't really talked about yet, but I'm sure we'll get here. Well, let's go there now. It's the DXY. The DXY, right? Again, it's a measure of the dollar's value against the global currencies in a basket of global currencies. The dollar has been floating around 105, 103, went back up to 104. Guys, it's like kind of flip-flopping here. And we see direct correlation in values of commodities like gold, like silver, and like Bitcoin. So when you hear that China is doing some action against the US and you see that the euro is crashing because of Credit Suisse issues, this is going to make it seem like the dollar is strong. And I think that couldn't be more of a joke to all of us here sitting today. We know the dollar is not strong. We feel how hurtful the dollar is with us. We wish we would have invested more in gold and silver in the past. And the countries, China, Russia, India, Brazil, what are they all buying up? Gold. Why aren't they talking about this? So to me, it's like they're getting ready for something to come. They are dumping their dollars, and we're sitting over here thinking that it's great because the DXY says it is. They don't care about fiat. They're stacking gold.
Yeah, I think that's we saw that at the coin shops the other day. So many people are interested in silver and gold right now. I think supplies are very low. There's a lot of interest in the junior miners and the mining companies that are out there because there is an overwhelming demand for silver and gold, and they were hurt. They were really they were hurt a lot with the shutdown a couple of years ago, where they couldn't mine. They just couldn't go and get this. Now they're trying to catch up, and now with all the accelerated demand from anything from what's in these these devices to the probably whatever device you're watching us on. And thank you again, like, share, subscribe. Really appreciate that. But there's so much demand for silver and gold, they can't keep up. So there's people want the tangible forms of money, not currency, but money in their hands, and to avoid that counterparty risk, kind of like what we do with these wallets here. People want to have some kind of confidence because all that confidence is shaken right now. Wouldn't you agree, Dylan?
Yeah. Yeah. And then if you think if you have a physical asset on hand that people can value, can actually put a price on, that gives you a lot of leverage if the banks go down, if you can't access any of your digital money. And if you can't move that, now you have something that you can actually trade with, so things can keep going. You have liquidity to use. So it makes sense. If trust is falling out of the traditional banking system, where we know they use fractional reserve banking, they don't have everything on hand, right? It becomes very clear. Hey, all right, hold something that you can utilize if that other system fails. It seems like it's just a normal hedge against that.
Yeah, I think we're halfway through the show. We have so much to talk about. I mean, there's no way to transition from this, but I think this
isn't it just insane? They're not telling you about it. Like no one's talking gold, silver, or how to buy Bitcoin. It's so difficult for someone to actually go. If let's say you had $5,000 today, and you're like, you know what? I hear what these guys are saying. I'm going to buy $2,500 of gold and silver, and I'm going to buy $2,500 of Bitcoin. So many people don't even know where to start. They don't know where to go to buy gold. They don't know where to go to buy silver. And they sure as hell don't know where to buy Bitcoin, nor where to store it. And that's the problem here, is people are not prepared. The idea that they could be wrong is not even fathomable to them. It's like they're not even looking at what could possibly be happening. Guys, look at the writing on the wall. Like, seriously, look at what's going on, what we talked about last week with land grabs in Ohio. Look at what's happening with our water supply. Look what's happening with our food supply. Look what's happening with our monetary systems. Look at the narrative in the mainstream media.
Well, part of the problem now is it's confirmation bias, right? I mean, people, like, they're so used to turning on the TV being told, this is the news. I remember, my grandfather watched it every night religiously. He watched it. He turned on from like 5 to 7, watched news every night. And back then they didn't have the propaganda rules that they have now. So no one believed, but we're seeing the dynamic change. People are starting to question the news. People aren't believing what they're being told. But you're right. You still need to know a crypto guy. Like we have, obviously, economic preppers. All three of us can help people, and there's ways to contact us. If you want to know how to get silver or Bitcoin, please reach out to us, and we'll help you. We'll direct you. And if you don't work with us, we'll help you get started. I mean, go to your local coin shop for one. There's one way to go. But if you can't get Bitcoin or need a better deal on silver, contact Patrick or myself. That we have inroads for that. But you've got to do something right now just to protect yourself. If nothing, just as a hedge. If all your wealth is in the form of, and all derives down to Federal Reserve note dollars, then you really are in one asset class that's a vector of attack that you may not even be aware of. So that's what, as preppers, we need to think about those things. Like if you have, we've got a great compound, but we only have one entrance or exit. Where's your exit if that one is blocked by fire or something? So these are kind of things you need to think about as we move forward with those kinds of that dynamic. But halfway through the show, we got lots of other things to talk about. There's no real easy way to change from anything else in the banking, guys, before we go to other stories.
No.
I'm
sure we'll talk about it more in the future.
Absolutely. But before we do, I think we need to talk about some of the other things that are going on in the news, and we'll get to some woo-woo too. In fact, let me touch on a former woo-woo story that came out, I think, just last night. That I don't know if anyone.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know. I'm gonna have to bucket to that one at best.
Oh, okay. This was what I was talking about in the beginning.
No, this is not. That's bucket 2. It's still bucket. That's not even real. This guy is not a real guy.
The story is real from the Pentagon, saying for the Pentagon to be talking about there could be a UFO alien mothership in our solar system.
No, there is not. No.
This is laying the ground. This is This is predictive programming. This is
No.
putting out a narrative before it happens. So
Shut
laying
it
the
off,
groundwork before it's going to happen at some point
Shut
this year.
it
They
off.
will be
Take it
talking.
off the screen. It's not really happening. How is this possible? What are you
Believe so
talking
much.
about? What do you mean a mothership? What the hell is going on?
Operation Bluebeam. So when they're all out of narratives to
So
distract
it's not a real
you,
mothership.
I didn't say it would be, but this is the story.
Thank you so much. That's a great. Okay, now it's up. Now we're bucket 2 again. Okay, let's go.
Okay, fine. Well, I can live with bucket 2, but
Yeah,
I found
real.
it very interesting because we're like, where's this evidence of Project Bluebeam? Here's the Pentagon talking about UFOs and how there might be a mothership. I don't know, hanging. I won't say Uranus, but it's there's a joke there. You can fill it in yourself, but you get the idea. But why would they even put this story out right now? There's got to be a reason behind putting this narrative out now. So just keep it in the back of your mind
and live your life. If Thanos is coming and to snap his fingers, there's nothing we can do. So let's just
but
live
come
our
Labor
life.
Day, when there's stories
Jackson
about a
comes up to
mothership
you and says, "Hey, you want to join a team?" Then you can't ignore it. But if he hasn't done that to you, you probably aren't selected.
If Thanos comes, I'm shooting. I don't know what else to say. There's no discussion. You don't wait to see if your enemy's still breathing. No, I'm shooting aliens. I'm shooting at aliens. I'm going to shoot all aliens.
Speaking of other wacky videos, let's talk about another platform that we've had a lot about and also like with foreign countries, TikTok. And I won't play this whole video here, but this came out yesterday from Yahoo. TikTok, again, has been in the news because they are Chinese owned, which is a company called ByteDance. And I know that our former president, Mr. Trump, would say that, hey, they were trying to say that that's an attack vector. TikTok puts stuff on your phone. Don't have TikTok. They're trying to ban it. And now TikTok is apparently trying to divest of their Chinese holdings so that they can pass the security issues that people were raising as a concern. TikTok is an immensely growing platform, growing faster than any other platform that's out there. Dylan, you probably know more about it than either of us combined. I've used it a little bit, but Dylan, what's your take on this story?
I mean, just my take on TikTok in general are the story. I mean, of course, they're going to find ways to try and make more money and get more market penetration and get more acceptance if they're one of the fastest growing platforms. But in general, like it's evil, right? It's just mind control, and it's just what it's doing to the youth, especially. I know that I'm sounding like an old person, oh my gosh, it's destroying the youth. But it is like it's so addicting. Like, have you ever gotten on there and like it's being emulated on Facebook, on Instagram? You get on there and the way it like syncs up to your likes, your dislikes, your interests, your whatever your feelings, and next thing you know, 45 minutes or an hour has passed by, right? It's these like micro dopamine hits that it just constantly gives you. And the problem is that the content that is being optimized for, like, you don't know the algorithm behind that and why it's being optimized in that way. And so it puts you almost in this hypnotic state where once you're in that state, anything can be shown to you and any sort of messages can be presented to you. And of course, that's amazing for advertisers, amazing if you're trying to do that, amazing if you're a content creator that has tapped into like some of these hypnotic style pieces of content. But what type of value does it actually add? It's a pure value extraction, right? Because all people are talking about, oh, this TikTok dance, this TikTok, this thing, right? But it's meaningless. It's like someone they're optimizing to just get the most amount of views, get the most amount of your time, so they get the most amount of money from advertisers that want those views and eyeballs. And
yeah, it's amazing.
It's
and
dangerous.
I remember years ago, I remember like the attack vector on your attention was like the previews at the movie theater. I remember that some movies got in trouble by putting in like a 2-second commercial that made people hungry and go out and get concessions. Now this is like a factor of 100, and who knows what they could put on this platform because everybody's got this device sitting at home on their Wi-Fi, losing hundreds of hours every year just watching cat videos or people dads getting hit by their sons in the crotch. I mean, this is what we've been reduced to rather than being a successful manufacturing country we were 60, 70 years ago. That we've gotten lazy, this is where we've gotten, and that's one of the reasons why we're like, maybe TikTok isn't such a good thing. Patrick, what's your take on TikTok and what they're doing with their ownership?
Well, I guess I have two things. First of all, thank you, Mr. President Trump, for bringing this to our attention years ago, right? Because I haven't used TikTok. As a matter of fact, sometimes my wife will send me an Instagram that looks like TikTok, and I'm like, why are you watching TikTok? Because to me, I've been aware about this. Like the idea that they're spying on us is actually nothing I'm new to, right? I'm convinced that they're probably getting whatever they want to get anyways, and I have really nothing too much to hide. The real question here is, why is Biden all of a sudden on the same page with us? Like, think about that. Why is Biden all of a sudden saying if they don't change their ownership? Like, when did he become so anti-China? Like, what happened here?
That's an interesting story that you bring that up, and I hadn't put that on the agenda, but we can talk about this too, which is that our Congress never agrees on anything, but yet they've unanimously voted on a recent piece of legislation to reveal a lot about a certain illness or certain information that they want. They unanimously said, let's release all the information. And Mr. Biden is sitting on that piece of legislation and has not signed it. So is he trying to pocket veto it? Because if it comes out, either way, I think he's in trouble. I think if it gets fully released, he's in trouble. If he vetoes it, he looks bad. So that's another interesting story that we're watching.
Yeah, but the TikTok thing doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why now. Like what's happening now that's wanting to get them out of America's backyard? What is happening now that they want to be ready? Like, why now is my question. So to me, it's just more of a curiosity. Okay, I agree with you guys, but when do we ever agree? Like, this doesn't happen. So what's the catch?
Well, the reason I bring that up is it's possible that the news that's going to come out with the information through the Twitter files or about what the Congress wants to release that Biden's sitting on, maybe the information includes what TikTok has been doing, just as like maybe they're a co-conspirator or whatever. I don't know. We don't know yet, but maybe they're trying to get ahead of things by releasing this information now rather than later. Kind of like that UFO story, which you don't want to talk about.
I mean, all I want to tell you guys, if you haven't figured it out by now, this is the first time you're hearing this. The way that TikTok works, one of the strategies they use is it learns what kind of frequency of a frame rate and light ratio that your brain likes to keep you entranced more. Eventually, over time, it learns, right? Is that so weird for us to think that it's learning our behavior? It's not like there's AI out there or anything to correlate some of these things together and then show you more to keep you entranced. That's why you find half an hour going to an hour, because you are like literally almost hypnotized. So if you didn't know that, I want you to know that. Don't feel bad that you're stuck and you're glued, and that don't feel like you're the only person. My wife and I also have to be purposeful about putting our phones down and just hanging out every once in a while, because if we don't, we both get sucked in with our last hour and a half at night just looking at our phones, and we're losing the human connection, guys. So that's part of the problem of TikTok, not just the spying. It's desensitizing you to what's important. In China, they are not allowed to have TikTok this way. Did you guys know that?
Did not know that, but I think that you bring up a great point about AI. And Dylan, you've been itching to talk about this on the show for a couple of weeks now. I think let me share that one video that you shared. But we have ChatGPT, which is helping people create content like mad all over social media. And we're exploring it as well. I think all content creators need to be exploring it. But we've also got something more advanced than ChatGPT coming out, I believe, next week from is it Microsoft? I'm not sure which company it was, but
not sure.
It's supposed to be like 100 times more advanced and be able to do images and graphs and stuff. So AI is coming. It's coming quickly. And I think that a lot of people are concerned about it. I know Elon Musk has talked about his concern. Dylan, what kind of things are you seeing in the world as far as AI concerns?
Oh man, I think there's a lot. I think you should go listen to that interview with that guy. That guy's been doing AI stuff for years. Eliezer Yudkowsky. So he's smart guy. He needs to work out. If we're having this apocalypse, get yourself in shape, Eliezer. He mentioned that in the podcast. That's one of the things we like to talk about is keep yourself healthy, because if your mind and body aren't functioning correctly, you're not going to be able to survive any sort of apocalypse very well. But anyway, so that aside, the guy's very, very smart, and he basically is saying that we are going down a dark path with AI, and he doesn't believe ChatGPT is necessarily that path. at this point in time, because it's just kind of a language model. And what's come out so far, it doesn't tap into real-time data. And I think it only goes up in 20 data until 2021. And there's a lot of like, manipulations that are done on the back end to affect the outputs for ChatGPT. So it's not super sophisticated when you think about a super intelligent AI, when that's something that's like more capable than the smartest human or the most capable human in most or all domains. And when you get to that level, the problem that he talks about, and the thing to think about, is when you create something that can think and operate just that basically the speed of light, because that's what it's doing, right? What it's processing, and it's smarter than you. How are you going to overpower that? How are you going to outcompete that type of thing, right? How are you going to know? Because it's going to know, what your next move is. It's studied you. It's already understands what your moves are. It's like playing chess against a grandmaster chess champion, right? They already know all the moves before you do, right? They're playing the game so many steps ahead that like you won't be able to keep up, and that's what the AI will do. And that's a scary thing, because if you don't know that and aren't able to control it, right, it's going to be controlling you. And who says it needs you? And so it's very doomsday, that video, but it's very eye opening at the powers that we're playing with. And with that said, he believes that potentially in 16 years or within 16 years, we may face a dramatic change to our way of life due to AI. And probably not for the positive. But with that said, there are tools like ChatGPT that can have that are out there, that are advancing, that are becoming better and better and better, that can enhance your life today, and that aren't quite full AI. So maybe aren't contributing to that doomsday scenario. So things like ChatGPT, I think the short-term benefits are you basically get an expert for almost zero cost instantaneously. And right now it's kind of contained to the domain of writing, but that stuff can expand out. I mean, the other smart AI developers or pseudo AI developers, they can clone ChatGPT with their own AI model. They can have their own AI model go in and ask it a series of questions and basically clone how it's producing its results. And now they can take that over to whatever platform they want to use it on and apply that. And I think that's cool, right? That's like free market competition. But it's scary if it leads to that outcome that Eliezer talks about. But I don't know. I'm so torn on this. Like, there's so much opportunity, but then there's also like existential dread on the other side of it. And I know we can't give into that existential dread.
Yeah, you gotta
What
live
are
your
we
life.
doing? We're talking like Terminator, aliens,
Skynet.
Like, what the heck is happening? How do we
Yeah.
go from economic preppers to like M. Night Shyamalan?
Well, this goes back to like, control what you can control and don't worry about what you can't control, right? So like we're talking about 16 years that this may happen. So I mean, some of us are just trying to survive 16 months or 16 weeks. Okay. We have no idea what the world is going to be like 16 weeks from now. I think we come back here. If you go 16 episodes in the future, what is it going to look like? Or do we have banks? I mean, this is the kind of things that we're talking about. So is it a concern? First off, I think that ChatGPT is a major step forward.
No,
towards
I'm not
producing.
concerned. We have cordless hole punchers. You do the same thing you do to aliens, that robots that are attacking you. You take them out. You don't let a robot come near you.
That's the problem. They're not going to come at you in robot form necessarily. That's like
You're not allowed on my property. I don't care who you are or what you look like. You're a threat to my family. I trust in God and Glock.
Well, so here's something that is just to kind of continue this tangent just for a little bit longer. I watched the movie Luther, and it's a serial killer movie, and basically it has Idris Elba as the detective guy. But basically, spoiler alert, but the bad guys were hacking people's computers, monitoring people's web activity, and they had a whole system to basically determine the vulnerability status of an individual as it pertains to their likelihood to be someone that could be blackmailed. And so they basically got it down to a science on how to find these people, what type of conditions need to be met for these people to make them prime blackmail targets, to where like the person would be willing to kill themselves or perform any sort of action or activity for the person blackmailing them before just letting it come out to the public of what they were caught for. And mind blowing. And that's stuff that like is being done today by humans, and the humans can understand. And like that's not science fiction. That's a bucket one thing that's happening today. And if you think of something so much more sophisticated than humans, if humans know how to do that and blackmail people around the world to do things, like if you ever saw the movie with Shia LaBeouf, Eagle Eye, where it was an advanced AI that was basically blackmailing individuals to complete basically a puzzle that, when brought back to the AI, freed the AI from its cage. That's what an AI will do, and it'll be so sophisticated. You won't know. You won't be able to track it. You won't be able to fight against it. You won't know who's calling you, but all you know is you have to do this one little piece, this one little thing, and then it's on to the next one, on to the next one, on to the next one. Next thing you know, Terminator here. So it's wild. It's wild. It's scary to go down those thought processes.
So you stopped. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that when you said bucket one, you stopped bucket one before you mentioned Terminator, right?
Terminator's not here yet, but
okay, I want to clear that up for our audience to make sure that we're all in the same bucket here, because I feel like you went straight to bucket two real quick.
But the bucket one, 100%. There are people, there are groups, there are both, foreign and domestic groups that are spying on your activity and monitoring, and are finding ways to utilize your your existence, your life existence, to benefit them. There's probably people, maybe someone listening to this has been taken advantage by that. And so this is one of the things to tie it back to economic prepping, is knowing this. Be cautious with what you're doing with your online activity. Be cautious with the footprints that you're leaving. Be cautious with what information you're revealing. That's what we say with Bitcoin. It's like, never talk about your Bitcoin, right? Never go up to someone and be like, oh yeah, I get like 10 Bitcoin, right? Never tell people exactly how you store it. When people start like, hey, yeah, my Bitcoin's in my Trezor, right? Like you're announcing to the world that you have something valuable and where to look for it. And people are listening, and not to be like super conspiratorial, or like to make you think people are watching and listening all the time, but that's just something to be aware of.
All my Bitcoin is with Dylan in Colorado.
Well, I think just in this program we have, like, you see two things that are potentially very, very frightening. You have AI that's being developed at a rapid pace, and we have the push towards digital ID because of what's going on with CBDCs. Can you imagine those two interact, and that same algorithm just works out who is the best people to for attack vectors, as Dylan pointed out in the Luther movie. So I think it's pretty interesting to talk about that. It's yet another thing to be concerned about. So again, just be protective of your information, like always. So it's another form of identity theft, but way, way more advanced and way more nefarious. So just be careful with that sort of thing. So turning our page to another story.
Wait, how do we offer any hope after that?
How do we offer any hope?
Yeah, that was like, just, you can't just end there.
I'll go. Okay,
like,
all right. That's on me. Okay, that's fine. So the digital ID.
Star heavy 308. I mean, give us like something.
Don't accept digital ID.
Bigger for the Terminator.
Don't accept digital ID until you have control over your own online information. Which is the purpose of Web3, which is still in development. So they're going to push for your digital ID to get all your information as a public record, and probably on a blockchain that the government controls, and all of a sudden there'll be a leak and all your private information is gone. It's bad. So the way to avoid this is don't comply. Don't sign up for this digital ID that you'll need to get the CBDC, if that's the vector to get it. So you have to be careful, or just do whatever, like be wary of whatever they ask for and say why. Like whenever I go to a store, they ask me for my phone number or email. I say, why do you need that information? I'm just buying, I'm buying a pack of gum. Why do you need it? Like, no, you don't, I don't need that. Like, so you skip that, but most people don't question that. So those are the kind of things to protect yourself. Don't share your private information of any kind, from how much Bitcoin do you have to your personal phone number, address, your kids' names. Don't put stickers in the back of your car that say, here's how big my family is, and my 3-year-old is named Nancy. That's the dumbest thing ever, because any person can come up and see that car and say, I'm going to call out the name Nancy. Hey, I'm your uncle. Your dad said, I'll pick you up. You don't do that. You got to think things through.
And then
how was that, Patrick?
That was good. The idea is to always create disinformation, right? So like, let's say you want, here's a pro tool, right? I'll share with you guys one of my great tools. It's called Burner app. You can download Burner app for $10 a month. It'll give you 3 different numbers that you can receive calls at. So you can give people a number that's not even a number that's associated to you and burn it at any time for $10 a month. So find ways, if you really have to use that phone, so, and you need a phone number to get your ID, just don't mix it with the identities that are made for secure purposes. You never mix the use cases, right? So figure out how to have one foot in both worlds is what I would say, because I grew up as a Christian, and for me, it was like hard sometimes not being able to relate to different communities because I was so sheltered from what other people who believed in different things were doing. And that made me have a really hard experience, unable to like relate to so many things, unable to read between the lines, unable to like really digest what's happening around me in a big picture way. And when you have a narrow way of thinking, you kind of, it's that saying of like, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I heard that again recently. You want to keep an eye on what's going on, and you don't want to be foreign to what a gun looks like. You want to know that's a weapon that's made to hurt you or made to be used as a tool. Either way, it's a tool that you need to understand how it functions and how to identify it when it's coming. If you don't know how to identify a threat, then how do you know how to keep your family safe? So when someone says, I want to pay you in whatever coin, and you know that that's not valuable to you, or it's only useful for X, Y, and Z use cases, you want to be able to kind of differentiate between what is true versus what is untrue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I want to say one thing for the AI tools, the optimism and hope there, and kind of channel the prepper mindset, is that these are amazing tools. Some of these tools are amazing, and they're not, world-ending AI stuff. Like being able to go to ChatGPT and ask it questions or get to design structures for content or give you insight. It's like having that expert, like I said before, having an expert in your pocket for almost zero cost instantaneously. And so if you can think about how to apply that to your life, to your business, what it does is it can free you from the shackles of having to have a super large team or work for a bunch of other people or depend on people that are unreliable. It can allow one person to do so much, right? And the key is to channel that in something that's productive and adds value. And there are problems that this stuff can solve, and that can really help people around you in your community, things that like you value. You can apply this stuff and do an amazing, like say there's a business, right, that sells an amazing product or service, whatever that business might be. And say they have like a really terrible website. You can go to ChatGPT, and you may not be a great copywriter, but you can channel the insights of ChatGPT to create amazing copy and go to that business, and you could sell the business that copy, which that you get money for the business. And now the business has a website or has copy that is much more in alignment with what they want, what they're doing, how they're helping, and that gets more customers and gets the business more sales. And now more people are having their problem solved. So that's a simple thing, but that's an amazing thing and amazing way you can use these tools to provide value. And one of the cool things is when you do that and figure that out, you can now start becoming more location independent. So you're not tethered to one location, or you don't have to be in a big city anymore because you can now work from anywhere in the world. And that gives you flexibility. And then you can use a lot of things we talk about when it comes to prepping. You can start utilizing that in your daily life, right? Freeing yourself from the danger zones and moving into less risky or more safe zones, or things that are more in alignment with your health and well-being and values.
So I think those are all great points. I think it will be very interesting to see what happens with the next generation that comes out in a week or two. But yeah, we need to be wary of the potentials here. But we look at things from being prepared, so you're not scared. We look at all these different angles, and we'll talk about them more in the future. If you have questions like that, please leave them in the comments. Different things that we didn't think of, we'll bring them up in a future episode. But we're constantly looking at different things, both from what's going on in the world, but also economics. And we're looking at anything from real estate to precious metals. We haven't touched on that too much lately, but I wanted to give a quick shout out to someone here who's launched a brand new conversation piece. And Patrick, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I believe this debuted.
That was so much fun.
This debuted today, did it not? Or
yeah, I was
Thursday?
Waiting for this to come out. It came out today. I did the interview yesterday with Peter Grandich. She was really fun. It was a great time. So let me put it this way too. If you've made it this far into the show, tweet at me and just say at Stock Pulse, right? And I'm going to give away 3 pieces of silver. So anyone who's watching right now, it's pretty simple. Tweet me, tag me in your comment and say at Divvy Daddy and at Stock Pulse. And I will send the first 3 people silver. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah, I'll be sure to leave everybody's Twitter address in the comments too. So definitely want to do that. We do have one more story before we get it close out with the woo-woo stuff. But this one is brought up to us by Dylan. San Francisco, always cutting edge in San Francisco in California. Apparently they're offering reparations. Dylan, can you unpack this a little bit for us?
Yeah, scroll down some. I heard about this. I heard about this on the Patrick Bet-David podcast. He had Michael Malice on there. And so basically they want to give reparations, and look at that. So payments of $5 million to every eligible Black adult, the elimination of personal debt and tax burdens, guaranteed annual incomes of at least $97,000 for 250 years, and homes in San Francisco for just $1 a family. Right.
That's going to end well.
So
I hope it happens in Oregon. That's so cool.
It's wild.
I would qualify. Yes,
There's so much to
identify
unpack
as
here.
Black, by the way, in the circumstance.
I'm Egyptian. Egypt is in Africa. I'm African American. I would qualify.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack here. It would be interesting to see this play out. I think we all probably believe that it probably won't play out in a positive manner. As a whole, maybe individually, yes.
But California, I totally identify with this. I really think this is easy to sell. Guys, come on. This is so easy to sell. I could qualify. I got this. Guys, why are we doing this? We need a different strategy. We need to move some people down to California. Where is this money coming from?
Exactly. You know, if you could print money to solve all the world's problems, you wouldn't have any problems. I think it's fairly well known that you can't just print money and solve problems. So
I thought that was modern monetary theory. Isn't that working perfectly?
It is, right? You know, and you know that 97,000. Remember we talked before about making long-term agreements, and then the rules changing. The $97,000, you may get that, and the next thing you know, that's in cash. That's in the old type of money, and it's not a Fed now money. So you can't buy as much with it. So now you're just getting Chuck E. Cheese tokens each year.
At least the Chuck E. Cheese tokens have some intrinsic value to me as a kid who was there. It'd make me happier than something that doesn't even make me happy. This is ridiculous.
I'm going to try to end this ridiculous conversation and wrap up the episode today with one more story, which is going to be the woo-woo part of the show. For those of you who never heard of NESARA, I wanted to bring this up today because I saw this on Instagram the other day. And I've seen this before, and it's I'm going to have to read this a little bit. So it's the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. So this is, if you read through this has been allegedly on the books or out there for decades. I think it goes back to the 60s in Kennedy. The farmers were originally wronged, and this is how it led to that act. But if you read some of these talking points, there's about 10 of them about debt forgiveness and the end of the IRS and
new
currency. Say again?
A new president in Congress.
Yeah. So this, when I read it a couple years ago, the first time I saw it, it looked way out there, like no chance. Deep into bucket 3. Well, and if I read all these talking points, I feel like it's climbing up bucket 3 and trying to get to a lower number, in my view. I mean, it feels to me like this is a little bit less out of the realm of possibility than it was a couple of years ago. And I know lots of people were interested in this. Some people will say not a chance. Some people say, well, this is going to happen. But it's interesting to look at these talking points and what could be considered a debt jubilee year. If you look at certain ways to read the calendar, we're in the 50th year of a cycle of every 7 years. I think is it Shabbat? I can't remember. I don't know Yiddish. Apologies there, but every 7 years in the Jewish calendar, there's seems to be an event. 2008, 2015, 2022, and now we're in year 50 of that cycle. If you go all the way back to the 70s, which is where we went off the gold standard,
the year of Jubilee.
So this could be the year of Jubilee. And if the year of Jubilee does come to fruition, I'm not saying this is obviously in bucket 3. Okay, but I think it's kind of wants to jump the bucket too because of all these talking points, and it's something to keep an eye on. And again, keep in the back of your mind, it's not a 0% chance. It is somewhere between 0 and 2% at this point. But I think that number could be going up higher and higher, much like your allocation of Bitcoin should have been a few years ago if you were paying attention to Pompiliano. So that's the story I wanted to close with, guys. What are your Patrick? What's your thoughts on this one?
Dude, so the whole 7-year cycle just really resonates with me. And I won't even like get too much into like why, but something about that just because I don't think I can even explain why, right? It just really resonates with me that the silver cycle seems to be there. When I look at crypto, it feels to be there biblically for sure. It resonates with me. So for sure, I believe that. And actually, at this point, I'm going to say hey to my little buddy Mason because his kid is like my biggest fan. I wanted to give him a shout out. But this whole idea of Nasara coming to fruition doesn't surprise me. Like the American consumer is lazy. What happened to the American dream where we got to work hard, have a white picket fence? You know, the idea that a family could have a vacation together and live in an easy, loving community. We want that so bad that we're willing to take out these handouts, which are going to lead to handcuffs. And we've heard Joe Brown talk about this often. So my thought on this is like, let's prepare, do something just in case you're wrong. I'm a Bitcoin guy. Why am I into gold and silver? And why am I doing a prepping show? The chance of an EMP happening, sure, even though it may be rare, leads me to believe that I should be prepared for things that I don't believe will happen. But should they come true, I want to be ready for it. And these days, Nasara looks a whole lot more like bucket 2 than bucket 3.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Patrick,
especially
where are you at with this?
I was going to say, especially after that
Sorry,
other
Dylan.
article. Yeah. After that article, I mean, part of that was, forgiving debt and so on and so forth, right? And that's kind of what Nassar looks like. It's forgiving debt, and of course, there's other things to it, releasing a bunch of other stuff that had been held back. Yeah, it's like what was it? It's like in have you seen Ready Player One?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like when they get to the end, they get the egg, and basically they can reset the system, reset the game in a more positive and productive manner than what it had been. It's just like that kind of thing, right? This is like a fail switch, and so I don't know. Maybe this is in place. It's wild.
Well, let's get back to a real concept because I almost missed this. Thank you for pointing this out, Patrick, in the chat here. But now it's time to talk about prepping items, and I'm going to share one from what I was going to share. Well, actually, let's just share the one today. We'll save that one for another time. But today, let's go over what you just wanted to share, which I believe is this.
Yep. So those guys are real simple. I just ordered it on Amazon. It came in real quick. You basically take a hacksaw to your gutter, cut out a piece of this, install this, and all of a sudden you have a little hose bib that you can use to collect rainwater. So this is one easy way that every person can prepare right now. It costs $20, and every home should be able to collect rainwater should they need to. Adding that to the Berkey filter from last week, you should be able to survive water pretty quickly. So these are the things that we want to do in little baby steps to help us prepare and make sure that our family isn't worried about helping our neighbors if something happens.
Excellent point. And I think just to round that out, everybody should also look up for a life straw as well and get those too for drinking. Mm-hmm. I think those three things really covers you well for water planning. But we've reached the end of the show. I think I agree with Patrick's point about lazy people. I'll get to that in the close, but I want to give everybody the last chance to comment on all the crazy stuff from the banking to the UFOs and everything in between. Dylan, what are your final thoughts?
Oh man, I hope UFOs are real. That'd be,
how can they not be? I mean, how arrogant are humans to think we're alone in the universe?
Well, and that would
pretty
also
arrogant. I'm okay with arrogance in some areas.
AI. That like at least if UFOs are real, they could protect us from the AI system that's coming. Or maybe they are the AI that's coming from another place. But at least, there's something more. They haven't killed us yet. So, I hope they're real. And they're not here to eat us. I don't want that. But
Patrick?
My faith is in God and Glocks.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. And I want to also give one shout out to a video that was called out on our Telegram or my Telegram follow leader. I think it was Crypto Viewing. He's showing some of his classic videos. That this is Dick Allgeier.
Oh, that Dick guy, man, he's right too. That guy scares the crap out of me. He does. He really
Well,
does.
he was talking.
He's right so much, and he's. I mean, I don't want him to be right about some stuff, you know.
Well, we'll see how it all plays out. But the video I was talking about with the whiteboard, and when he was in Hawaii, I think in 2021, he was talking about how supply chain was getting a car replacement part to Hawaii from China, and just the different ways to get it there is so much more efficient if you have a local 3D printer. But what I when I watched it the second time, because the second time I've seen that video, I was thinking like, this is Star Trek. This is literally like, this is what Gene Roddenberry envisioned with the replicators. So this is like science fiction becoming true. So while yes, we did touch on UFOs, we don't know if they're going to be friendly or foe. We don't know how they're going to be positioned, but think about something that could unite the planet. Like there's not many things that we can all agree on, but we get, or maybe hiding Antarctica. And that's another time. We'll save that for another show.
Oh,
but UFOs, I mean, imagine if all of a sudden, for whatever reason, we needed to unite as a planet against something else that was outside of our realm. It would be interesting that would come to fruition. Patrick, I love that.
You sound like my friend Lydia right now, who just talked to me last week. Lydia, if you're watching this,
hi, Lydia.
You know, guys, stop scaring the crap out of me. Like, I literally haven't thought of anything in the last week other than training every night after work. I'm like calling all my friends. You want to go training? You want to go training? Why? I want to be so ready for zombies, Terminators, aliens. I mean, you guys need to shut up every once in a while. Let's talk about numbers and let's just ban bucket. But no, because we need to be prepared, not scared. I'm back to normal.
There you go.
God.
Now with Patrick back to normal, Dylan looking his normal handsome self in the Bitcoin hat, I will go ahead and close out the show, and I'll recommend to everyone to continue to share, like, and subscribe. Really helps the channel. Contribute whatever stories you have. What do you want us to talk about? This is as much your show as is ours, and we want to thank you for watching this entire episode. And I will invite you to be prepared and not scared. Take care.